Okay, imagine for a second that the exact amount of money we need to save our planet's falling systems already exists. According to a radically innovative macroeconomic proposal we're looking at today, it's not some mythical sum we have to slowly scrape together over the next few decades. It is actually already out there. It's been generated by the global economy, but it is completely hidden from view. Welcome to this explainer. Today we're unpacking a really fascinating policy document that details a proposed treaty. It's called the Global Banking Cooperation Agreement. And honestly, whether you're a finance buff, an environmentalist, or just someone who wants to understand how we can actually tackle massive global problems through structural policy, we're going to decode exactly how this treaty proposes to bypass our current financial deadlocks. We're talking about a literal blueprint to fund planetary survival. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today's explainer. 1. The infrastructure emergency. 2. The financing deadlock. 3. The two policy levers. 4. The GBCA transaction flow. 5. Recovering the missing trillions. And finally 6. No excuse for inaction. Let's get right into it. Section 1. The infrastructure emergency. To really grasp this proposal, the source asks us to completely shift our perspective. We need to view the atmosphere itself as humanity's largest, most vital shared infrastructure. Think about it. Just like a physical highway or a suspension bridge can crack and eventually collapse, this planetary infrastructure is breaking down. The document zeroes in on a very specific scientific concept here: Earth's oxidative capacity. Basically, this is the planet's natural ability to process pollutants. You can think of it as a planetary immune system or even a global waste management network. And right now, according to the source, this capacity is collapsing under the sheer weight of industrial emissions. This isn't a distant threat. It's framed as a severe, immediate infrastructure emergency. The very systems that maintain our foundations are failing us. Section 2. The financing deadlock. So if the planet's absolute most critical infrastructure is breaking, why on earth aren't we fixing it? Well, just like fixing that massive suspension bridge, repairing the atmosphere requires astronomical funding. But the systems responsible for maintaining it, they are completely starved of capital. The document outlines that we are trapped in this massive structural deadlock. On one side, you've got the middle class and everyday citizens. They simply cannot afford to bear the unprecedented costs of planetary repair. The math just doesn't work, right? On the other side, you have the wealthiest actors, both ultra-wealthy individuals and massive corporations. The proposal notes that these entities use the most infrastructure and generate the vast majority of industrial pollution. Yet, instead of paying for the upkeep of the planetary systems they're constantly extracting value from, they are able to hide their wealth in unregulated tax havens. This completely removes those funds from global circulation. They avoid the taxes, and that leaves governments entirely unable to fund essential, life-saving repairs. Section 3. The two policy levers. So how exactly does the proposal suggest breaking what looks like an impossible deadlock? A situation where the people who can afford to fix the planet are shielding their money, and the people who can't are left holding the bill. Well, it proposes two major policy levers. The first tool is a progressive wealth tax of around 10%. The authors argue the logic here is pretty straightforward. It ensures that those who extract the most value from our shared global systems actually contribute proportionally to their repair. It's perfectly designed to tightly line a party's financial responsibility with their actual environmental impact. But, as we know, a tax alone isn't going to cut it if all that wealth is hidden away. Section 4. The GBCA transaction flow. To truly crack open and access that shielded wealth, the source introduces its second and, frankly, most powerful lever: the Global Banking Cooperation Agreement. Let's move to and see how this builds, because it relies on a very strict, three-step international transaction flow. Step 1. Every single bank operating in a tax haven jurisdiction agrees to a standardized 10% write-down on all depositor balances. Step 2. The total numerical value of that write-down isn't just absorbed by the banks. It is officially transferred to the ledger of the Bank for International Settlements, or the BIS. This creates a completely transparent, centralized record of the recovered wealth. Step 3. Based on that exact BIS record, central banks around the world then create new, equal public purpose liquidity. And the rules for this newly created central bank liquidity are incredibly strict. As the source powerfully states, and I'll quote it directly here, not for private profit, not for political gain, for the atmosphere, for pollution mitigation, for global resilience, for the systems that sustain life. This money is entirely ring-fenced. It cannot be used to pad out government budgets or fund private enterprise. It is exclusively, literally, earmarked for planetary survival and infrastructure repair. Section 5. Recovering the missing trillions. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer mind-boggling scale of what we're looking at. Because the amounts of money we are talking about recovering here are almost difficult to comprehend. The document cites estimates showing that global hidden wealth, money currently sitting untaxed and completely unused in tax havens, is somewhere between 8 trillion and 12 trillion US dollars. To put $12 trillion into perspective, that is roughly the combined GDP of Japan, Germany, and the United Kingdom. Combined. Just sitting there, stagnant in tax havens. This is immense wealth that was extracted from the planet, but absolutely never returned to maintain it. So let's do the math on the proposed treaty. If the Global Banking Cooperation Agreement actually executes that coordinated 10% write-down on that $8 to $12 trillion, it instantly recovers between 800 billion and 1.2 trillion US dollars in public purpose liquidity. By simply adjusting the ledgers in these specific cooperative jurisdictions, the treaty effortlessly unlocks massive, unprecedented funding. And the best part? It does this without placing a single cent of tax burden on the middle class. So, the crucial point is, what does roughly $1 trillion actually buy humanity right now? Well, according to the proposal, this scale of recovered liquidity is enough to aggressively restore the atmosphere's oxidative capacity. It would fund massive global pollution processing systems, rebuild our failing physical infrastructure, build out vital climate defenses, and ultimately stabilize global environmental systems for decades to come. It literally provides the exact capital required to treat the Earth's atmosphere like the essential life-giving infrastructure it actually is.
Section 6. No excuse for inaction.
The document closes out by addressing the deeper philosophical and moral implications of this whole agreement. And this brilliantly illustrates the core philosophy. The authors frame this treaty not as some sort of punitive penalty against the rich, but as a desperately needed planetary maintenance fee. It illustrates the ultimate goal of the proposal, which is a return to balance. Look, the wealthiest actors rely on planetary systems for global commerce, manufacturing, and transportation way more than anyone else. This agreement argues that their financial responsibility should finally actually match their physical impact. It dictates that wealth extraction must be balanced by reinvestment. By returning this hidden wealth to public purpose, the treaty aims to ensure that those who extract the absolute most value are structurally, fundamentally obligated to pay for the maintenance of the systems that provided that value in the first place. Which brings us to the final, piercing thought left to us by the source material. We stand at a massive turning point right now, where the very infrastructure that sustains human civilization is failing. But as this document clearly outlines, we actually don't lack the solutions. We have merely lacked the financing mechanisms to implement them. But if a mechanism like the Global Banking Cooperation Agreement exists, a viable way to fully fund planetary survival by recovering hidden wealth, completely bypassing that impossible tax burden on the middle class, and we know beyond a shadow of a doubt that we have absolutely everything to lose, what is our excuse for inaction? It's a profound question to leave you with today. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this deep dive into structural macroeconomic policy has given you a completely new, practical way to look at how we might just save our planet.